Captain Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the big screen that showed the stars. The stars were going out one by one, like someone was turning off lights in the sky. His hands shook as he watched 27 human colonies disappear from the map in just 1 week. The ship was called New Sol, and it was big enough to carry 300 people. Jack had been the captain for 10 years and had never seen anything like this. His first officer, Kim Tae-ho, ran to him with a data pad in his hands. His face was white with fear as he showed Jack the readings, Commander. "This is impossible," Tae-ho said. "The colonies are not just destroyed. They are gone like they never existed at all. The quantum beacons that connect us to every human world are silent. There are no signals, no life signs, nothing at all." Jack took the data pad and looked at the numbers. 27 worlds with millions of people had vanished without any warning. The last messages from these places were, "All the same, help us, something is coming." Then silence forever. Park Min-ho, the navigation officer, was trying to find safe places to travel, but the dangerous zones were getting bigger, every hour, at her station Lee. So Min, the communications officer, kept trying to call other human ships and colonies. Her voice was getting tired from calling out to empty space again and again. "Hello, this is New Sol. Please respond. Any human ship, please answer us." The speakers only gave back silence that made everyone on the bridge feel cold inside. Dr. Choi Ji-woo, the ship scientist, was studying the strange energy readings from where the colonies used to be. She had been working for 16 hours without rest. Her computer showed patterns that made no sense. According to these readings, she told Jack the colonies were not blown up or burned. They were erased from reality itself, like someone used a giant eraser on the universe. Jack had fought in 3 big wars and had seen terrible things happen to good people. But this was different. This was not war. This was something much worse. The enemy was not just killing humans. They were making it. So humans had never existed at all. Every building, every person, every memory of human presence was being wiped clean from those worlds. The worst part was how organized it all seemed. The attacks were not random. They followed a straight line through space, moving directly toward Earth. Young officer Shin Woo-jin had mapped the pattern, and his calculations showed the enemy would reach Earth in less than 3 days. "Look at this pattern," Captain Woo-jin said, pointing at his screen. "The attacks move in a perfect line. Each world is exactly the same distance apart. They are not stopping to take anything or look around. They just erase and move on toward home security." Chief Bae Suho had been checking reports from the few human outposts that were still alive. The news was getting worse every hour. "Sir," he said to Jack, "the outer colonies are sending evacuation ships toward Earth. But at this rate, the enemy will get there first. Most of our people will not escape in time." Jack walked to the big window that showed the stars ahead of them. In 72 hours, Earth might be gone forever. All the people he had ever known, his family, his friends, everyone would be erased like they had never been born. The thought made his chest feel tight and his hands shake. Engineer Yoon Da-eun called from her station. "Captain, I am reading massive energy signatures. Ahead, something big is happening in the Kepler system. We are getting strange readings from where New Busan colony used to be." Pilot Kang Hai. Jin turned in her chair. "Captain, should we investigate? It could be dangerous, but we might learn something about the enemy." Jack knew she was right. They had no choice. If humanity was going to survive, they needed to understand what they were fighting against. The crew looked at Jack, waiting for his decision. These were good people who trusted him to keep them safe, but safety was not possible anymore. The entire human race was depending on what they did next. Every person on Earth, every child, every family was counting on the crew of New Sol to find answers. Jack made his choice. "Set course for the Kepler system," he ordered. "We are going to find out what happened to New Busan and who is doing this to us." The ship turned toward the danger zone, where reality itself seemed broken, as they traveled toward the unknown enemy. Jack thought about all the people depending on them. Earth had no big space fleet that could fight this threat. The military ships were too far away to help in time. The New Sol was just an exploration ship with 30 crew members, but they might be humanity's only. Hope T-Ho stood beside Jack as they watched the stars get closer to their destination. Captain, what if we cannot stop them? What if this enemy is too powerful for us to fight? Jack looked at his friend and thought about all the humans who had ever lived on Earth. Then we make sure Earth knows what is coming, he said. We send them everything we learned so they can prepare. Even if we do not survive, someone else might find a way to stop this. Jack knew the words sounded braver than he felt inside, but his crew needed to believe they could make a difference. The ship moved through space toward the place where New Busan used to exist. Behind them, the trail of erased colonies grew longer as the enemy continued its march toward Earth. Ahead of them waited answers that might save humanity, or destroy the last witnesses to what had happened, Lee. So Min tried one more time to contact any surviving humans. Hello? This is Captain Morrison of the New Sol. If anyone can hear this message, please respond. We are moving to investigate the threat. All human ships, please stay away from the erasure zones. The silence that came back felt like the quiet before a terrible storm. Jack knew that in a few hours they would meet the enemy face to face. Whatever happened next would decide if humans had any future among the stars. The weight of an entire species rested on his shoulders as the New Sol flew toward its destiny. The New Sol dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Jack Morrison saw something that made his brain hurt to look at. The whole star system was twisted like someone had bent reality into impossible shapes. Huge crystal structures floated in space where the planets used to be. These crystals were bigger than cities, and they glowed with colors that did not exist in normal space. Engineer Yoon stared at her instruments and shook her head. Captain, these energy readings are impossible. These things are putting out more power than our sun, but the energy is not heat or light. It is something else entirely. Pilot Kang Hai-jin fought with the ship controls as space itself seemed to push and pull them in different directions. The gravity here is all wrong, she said through gritted teeth. It keeps changing direction like the universe cannot decide which way is up. The ship shook and groaned as reality bent around them. Through the chaos, they finally saw movement near the crystal structures. Things that looked like geometric shapes made of pure light were floating between the crystals. They moved in perfect patterns like they were dancing to music only they could hear. But when Jack looked directly at them, his eyes hurt and his head started pounding. Navigation Officer Park Min-ho tried to scan the light beings, but his equipment kept giving impossible results. Sir, these entities do not seem to be made of normal matter. They might be pure energy or thought. I cannot get solid readings on them. The patterns kept changing every time he looked. Dr. Choi Ji-woo was studying the crystal structures when something incredible happened. The crystals began to glow brighter, and suddenly images appeared in the air. Around the bridge, Jack saw flashes of other worlds, other species, all being erased the same way New Busan had been destroyed. The images showed the same pattern over and over. Worlds full of life and cities and families would suddenly become empty. Space with no trace that anyone had ever lived there. It had happened to hundreds of different species across millions of years. Each time, the crystal beings had come and wiped everything clean. Then the images focused on Earth, and Jack felt ice. In his veins, he saw his home planet from space, beautiful and blue with white clouds. But in the vision, Earth began to fade like an old photograph, until there was nothing left but empty space where it used to be. Science Officer Shin Woo-jin suddenly screamed and fell to the floor. Blood poured from his nose and eyes as something invaded his mind. The alien thoughts hit everyone on the bridge like hammers made of pure hate and disgust. Jack felt the enemy trying to read his memories and thoughts. The message that came through was clear and terrifying. The crystal beings called themselves the Hegemony, and they were very old. They had been alive since before humans existed, and they hated all biological life. The chaos and unpredictability of living things made them angry because it disrupted their perfect ordered universe, Communications Officer Lee. So Min fought to keep the mental connection open, even though it felt like her brain was being torn apart. The Hegemony considers us a virus, she gasped. They think biological life spreads chaos through the galaxy like a disease. They want to clean everything back to mathematical perfection. The hegemony showed them visions of the galaxy as it was millions of years ago. Every world was perfectly organized with crystal structures imposing mathematical harmony on reality itself. There was no war, no chaos, no unpredictable life, just endless perfect equations playing out across the stars. But then biological life had started to evolve and spread. Plants and animals and thinking creatures began changing things in ways the hegemony could not predict. Every new species added more chaos to their perfect system. Life created art and music and love and all the messy, unpredictable things that made existence interesting. The hegemony had decided long ago that the only solution was complete erasure. They would wipe out every trace of biological life and restore the galaxy to perfect mathematical harmony. They had been doing this for millions of years, removing species after species until only they remained. Jack felt the alien minds probing deeper into human consciousness, trying to understand what made humans different from other species they had erased. But something unexpected happened. As the hegemony looked into human thoughts, they found patterns they had never seen before. The ancient beings had expected to find simple biological chaos like every other species, but human minds contained something unique. Humans did not just create random chaos. They turned chaos into solutions. They took impossible problems and found ways to solve them through creative thinking and stubborn determination. For the first time in millions of years, the hegemony felt something they had forgotten: existed curiosity. These biological creatures were different from all the others. Instead of being destroyed by chaos, they seemed to thrive on it. They turned uncertainty into strength and used unpredictability as a tool. Security Chief Bei Su-ho watched the hegemony crystal ships beginning to surround the new Sol. "Sir, they are powering up their erasure weapons. We have maybe minutes before they try to delete us from reality." The ship systems began failing as the hegemony technology started, affecting local space. But Jack had felt something during the mental contact. The hegemony was curious about humans, which meant they were not completely certain about erasing them. This curiosity might be the only weapon humanity had against an enemy that could rewrite reality itself. "If we can prove we are more than just chaos," Jack told his crew, "we might convince them not to erase us. We need to show them that human unpredictability creates something valuable, not just random destruction." The fate of every human who had ever lived depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The crystal beings floated closer to the new Sol, and Jack could feel their ancient minds examining every thought and memory the crew possessed. Humanity's survival would depend on whether these mathematical gods could understand that sometimes the most beautiful solutions came from embracing chaos instead of fighting it. Jack Morrison felt his consciousness being pulled into the hegemony mind link, and suddenly he was seeing through their ancient memories. The visions showed him millions of years of galactic history, species after species rising to intelligence, only to be systematically erased when they became too chaotic for the hegemony to tolerate. He saw civilizations that had built beautiful cities and created amazing art all wiped away because their unpredictable nature disrupted the mathematical harmony the hegemony demanded. Every time a species began to spread and change things in unexpected ways, the crystal beings would arrive and erase them completely from existence. The hegemony showed him world after world that had been home to thinking. Creatures, reptilian beings who had mastered genetic engineering only to have their entire species deleted when their experiments created too much biological diversity. Crystalline entities who had achieved perfect telepathic harmony but were erased when they began questioning the hegemony mathematical laws. But as Jack experienced these memories, he began to notice something the hegemony themselves did not seem to understand. Every species they had encountered had eventually chosen either complete submission to mathematical order or complete destruction. There had never been a third option until now. Commander Kim Tae-ho was monitoring the ship systems while Jack was trapped in the mind link. "Sir, the hegemony is analyzing our entire crew. Crystal structures are scanning every human thought pattern they can reach. They seem especially interested in our problem-solving methods." Navigator Park Min-ho had been reviewing human military history while the aliens probed their minds. "Captain, I think I understand why they find us different. Every major human victory in war came from doing something completely unexpected. We win fights by being unpredictable, not by being stronger. Dr. Choi Ji-woo made a breakthrough while studying the hegemony technology from the inside of their mind link. The crystal structures work by imposing mathematical certainty on quantum probability. She explained to the crew through their shared connection. They force reality to follow predetermined equations, but human consciousness operates on quantum uncertainty. She continued, "Our brains process information using quantum effects that create genuine randomness. Every human thought contains elements that cannot be predicted or controlled by mathematical formulas." Jack felt the hegemony recoiling from this discovery in their shared consciousness. The ancient beings had spent millions of years perfecting their control over reality through mathematics. But human minds worked on principles that existed outside mathematical control completely. Engineer Yoon Da-yoon was analyzing the crystal ships surrounding them when she noticed something strange. "Captain, their erasure weapons are having trouble locking onto us every time they try to delete us from reality. Our quantum signatures shift in ways they cannot predict." The hegemony had never encountered minds that functioned as natural quantum computers, processing chaos into creative solutions. Their reality engines were designed to handle predictable patterns, but human unpredictability created cascading errors in their perfect systems. Security Chief Bae Soo-ho brought terrible news from the sensor readings. "Sir, the erasure wave has accelerated. The enemy detected our resistance, and they are moving faster toward Earth. We now have less than 18 hours before they reach the Sol system, but worse news followed. The hegemony had begun focusing their attention directly on the new Sol. The ship hull started phasing in and out of existence as the ancient beings tried to delete them from reality. Jack could feel the crystal entities analyzing every detail of human consciousness, searching for a way to erase what they could not understand. Science Officer Shin Woo-jin was still connected to the hegemony mind link despite the pain it caused him. "Captain, I can see their decision-making process. They are debating whether to study us further or destroy us immediately. Some of them want to understand how we resist their..." Control pilot Kang Hae-jin struggled to keep the ship stable as reality warped around them. "The space around us keeps changing. Captain, one moment we are in normal space. The next we are somewhere else entirely. It is like the universe cannot decide if we exist or not." Communication Officer Lee. So-min detected something in the hegemony transmissions that gave Jack hope. "Sir, they are experiencing something they have not felt for millions of years. Uncertainty. They do not know what will happen if they try to erase us, and that terrifies them." Jack realized this was their weapon. The hegemony had become so dependent on mathematical certainty that genuine unpredictability was like poison to their ordered minds. Every human thought created chaos in their perfect system, and they did not know how to handle it. Through the mind link, Jack could feel the ancient beings struggling with concepts they had not encountered in eons. The possibility of genuine surprise, the beauty of unexpected solutions, the strength that came from accepting uncertainty instead of fighting it. These ideas were foreign to creatures who had eliminated all unpredictability from their existence. Dr. Choi Ji-woo made another discovery while examining the hegemony memory files. "Captain, they have records of other species that showed some resistance to erasure, but all of them eventually submitted to mathematical control or were destroyed. We are the first species that seems to get stronger when faced with impossible odds." The revelation hit Jack like lightning. Humans did not just resist chaos, they thrived on it. Every major advancement in human history had come from people who refused to accept that something was impossible. They took the worst situations and found ways to turn them into victories, but time was running out. The hegemony erasure wave was less than 18 hours from Earth, and the crystal beings surrounding the new Sol were preparing to make their final decision about humanity. Either they would try to understand what made humans different, or they would focus all their power on erasing this troublesome species before it could spread its chaos further. Jack made a decision that went against every principle of safe command procedure. If human unpredictability was their weapon, then he would use it in the most unpredictable way possible. He was going to do something so impossible that even the hegemony mathematical minds could not process it. The fate of humanity would depend on whether chaos could defeat perfect order. Jack Morrison looked at his crew as reality continued to bend and twist around their ship. The hull was starting to phase between dimensions, and several crew members were beginning to look transparent as the hegemony tried to erase them from existence. But Jack had learned something crucial from diving into the alien memories. The ancient beings had become so dependent on mathematical certainty that they could no longer understand truly random actions. Their reality engines processed every possible outcome and chose the most mathematically perfect result. But human chaos created results that their systems could not predict or control. Navigator Park Min-ho. "I need you to plot a jump directly into the heart of that crystal structure," Jack ordered, pointing at the largest hegemony reality engine, the one that is actively rewriting the laws of physics around us. The bridge went completely silent. Engineer Yoon Da-yoon stared at her calculations, and her face went white. "Captain, that is impossible. The probability of survival is 0%. The crystal structure is rewriting reality itself. We would be torn apart the moment we enter it, but that is exactly why it will work," Jack replied. "The hegemony cannot process actions with zero survival probability. Their mathematical minds reject impossible choices as invalid options. If we do something completely impossible, we might create enough chaos to disrupt their entire system pilot." Kang Hai-jin looked at Jack with tears starting to form. In her eyes, "Captain, you are asking us to fly directly into certain death. The crew has families, people waiting for them to come home. This plan will kill everyone aboard." Jack felt the weight of every life on his ship pressing down on him. These were good people who trusted him to keep them safe. But safety was no longer possible. The hegemony erasure wave was now 16 hours from Earth and accelerating. Every human on their homeworld would die unless someone found a way to stop the ancient beings. Commander Kim Tae-ho studied the sensor readings and slowly nodded. "Captain, the plan is insane, but it might actually work. The hegemony systems are designed for perfect mathematical harmony, introducing genuine chaos at the core of their reality. Engine could create cascade failures throughout their network." Dr. Choi Ji-woo had been monitoring the hegemony communications, and she brought disturbing news. "Captain, they are already adapting to our resistance. Several crystal ships have modified their erasure beams to handle quantum uncertainty. We are running out of time before they find a way to delete us. Security. Chief Bae, Suho, check the ship weapons and defensive systems. Sir, if we are going to do this impossible thing, we should do it now. Our shields are failing and the hull integrity is down to 40%. We cannot take much more reality distortion." Science Officer Shin Woo-jin was still connected to the hegemony mind link despite the terrible pain it caused him. "Captain, I can feel their confusion and growing anger. They do not understand how we keep resisting their control. Some of them want to focus all their power on erasing us immediately." Jack looked around the bridge at each member of his crew. These people had followed him through 3 colonial wars and never questioned his decisions. They trusted him completely, and now he was asking them to die for a plan that defied every law of physics and common sense. But through the mind-link connection, Jack could see something that gave him hope. The hegemony was genuinely afraid for the first time in millions of years. Their perfect ordered universe was being disrupted by human unpredictability, and they did not know how to stop it. Communications Officer Lee So-min detected massive energy buildups throughout the hegemony fleet. "Captain, they are preparing to focus all their erasure weapons on Earth. They plan to delete our homeworld from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Nothing will be able to stop them once they begin." The moment of decision had arrived. Jack could order a retreat, try to warn Earth and hope someone else would find a solution. But deep in his heart, he knew there was no one else. The new soul and its crew were humanity, last and only chance to prevent total extinction. "All crew prepare for emergency hyperspace jump into the hegemony reality engine," Jack commanded. "Everyone secure yourselves. This is going to be unlike anything we have ever experienced." If anyone wants to record final messages for their families, now is the time. Engineer Yoon Da-yoon worked frantically at her station, trying to calculate some way to increase their survival odds. Captain, I am routing all available power to the hull reinforcement, systems, and quantum stabilizers. It might buy us a few extra seconds inside the reality distortion field pilot. Kang Hai-jin placed her hands on the hyperspace controls and looked back at Jack. One final time. Captain, it has been an honor serving with you. If this plan somehow works and saves Earth, make sure they remember that we tried to do the impossible. The hegemony crystal structures began glowing brighter as they detected the new soul preparing for its suicidal jump. Their ancient minds could not comprehend why biological beings would choose certain death over surrender. But that incomprehension was exactly what Jack was counting on. As the ship charged its hyperspace engines for the impossible jump, Jack thought about everyone. On Earth, his sister who taught school in California, his parents who ran a small farm in Iowa, all the people who would never know that their survival depended on one crew willing to embrace chaos over certainty. The new soul launched itself directly into the heart of the hegemony reality engine, and Jack Morrison felt the universe explode into impossible colors and sensations as 30 humans chose to make the ultimate sacrifice to save their entire species. The new soul hit the crystal reality engine like a meteor striking a cathedral of light, and Jack Morrison felt his consciousness expand beyond anything human minds were meant to experience. Reality shattered around them as the ship quantum signature created feedback loops in the hegemony perfect mathematical framework. Engineer Yoon Do-yoon screamed as her body began phasing between dimensions. The competing laws of physics were trying to occupy the same space, and her molecular structure could not handle the paradox. Captain, the hull is disintegrating. We are existing in 17 different realities at the same time. But something incredible was happening inside the chaos science officer, Shin Woo-jin, despite being barely conscious from the psychic assault, made a discovery that changed everything. The chaos is not random. He gasped through the pain. It is following patterns embedded in our DNA itself. The reality distortions were not destroying the crew. They were reading the quantum information stored in human genetic code. Millions of years of evolution had shaped human DNA with survival algorithms that could process impossible situations and find solutions where none should exist. Dr. Choi Ji-woo was trapped in a temporal loop, experiencing the same moment over and over, but her consciousness was processing each iteration differently. She had become a living quantum computer, calculating probability matrices that spanned multiple timelines simultaneously through the ship-failing communication system. She transmitted data that made everyone brain hurt to understand. Captain, she said, her voice echoing across multiple dimensions. The chaos we created is spreading through the hegemony network like a virus. Every crystal structure that tries to process our patterns becomes infected with uncertainty. Pilot Kang Hai-jin was fighting to keep some version of the ship stable as competing realities battled for control of the same space. Sir, I am reading massive cascade failures across the entire hegemony fleet. They are losing control of their reality engines throughout 3 star systems. The effect was beyond anything Jack had imagined. The hegemony had built their reality control network on the assumption that biological chaos was predictable and controllable. But human consciousness operated on quantum uncertainty principles that their mathematical minds could not process. Navigator Park Min-ho watched in amazement as hegemony ships across the galaxy began experiencing critical system failures. Captain, their crews are struggling to understand how biological chaos can disrupt pure mathematics. They never designed their systems to handle genuine unpredictability. But Jack knew they were running out of time. The quantum storm they had created was losing cohesion as the hegemony began isolating infected systems. Communications Officer Lee So-min reported that the ancient beings were adapting faster than expected. Sir, they are cutting off the affected reality engines and preparing to build new ones. The cascade failure is being contained. They will resume the erasure protocol within hours, and this time they will be prepared for our quantum interference. Security Chief Bae Soo-ho brought even worse news, Captain. Our quantum cascade is destabilizing. Without the ship structure to anchor it, the chaos storm will collapse in minutes. Once it fails, the hegemony will simply eliminate the few remaining human outposts and complete their erasure of our species. Jack felt despair beginning to overwhelm him. They had sacrificed everything to create this moment of hope, but it was not enough. The hegemony was too ancient, too powerful, too experienced at eliminating troublesome species from existence. Then Dr. Choi Ji-woo, still trapped in her temporal loop, transmitted something that seemed impossible. Captain, I have been experiencing the same moment repeatedly, but my consciousness processes each iteration differently. I have calculated a solution, but it requires the ultimate sacrifice. Through the quantum link, she shared her discovery. The chaos storm could become permanent, but only if it had a quantum seed that could grow and spread without external support. The crew of the new soul could transform their combined consciousness into pure quantum information that would propagate through space-time itself. We can turn ourselves into a living virus of uncertainty. She explained, her voice coming from multiple timelines at once. But doing so means we stop being human in any biological sense. We become part of the quantum foam that underlies reality itself. Jack looked at what remained of his crew. Half of them were already more quantum energy than physical matter. Engineer Yoon Da-yoon existed in several dimensions simultaneously, her consciousness scattered across multiple probability states. Pilot Kang Hai-jin was flickering between different versions of herself as alternate timelines tried to occupy the same space, but in their eyes Jack saw determination that transcended physical existence. They understood what Dr. Choi Ji-woo was proposing, and they were willing to pay the price to save humanity from extinction. Commander Kim Tae-ho spoke for all of them, his voice harmonizing across multiple realities. Captain, we joined this mission to explore the unknown. We never expected to become the unknown, but if that is what it takes to save Earth, then we accept the transformation. Science Officer Shin Woo-jin managed, a weak smile as his body continued phasing between dimensions. Sir, we always knew deep space exploration was dangerous. We just never expected to become part of space itself. Jack felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. These people trusted him to make the right choice, even when that choice meant transforming them into something beyond human comprehension. But Earth was still in danger, and conventional weapons could not stop the hegemony. The quantum storm was beginning to collapse around them, and the hegemony reality engines were already adapting to handle biological chaos. In minutes, they would lose their only chance to create a permanent defense against erasure. Jack Morrison made the decision that would echo through human history forever. All crew prepare for quantum consciousness transfer. We are going to become humanity's first line of defense against extinction, even if we can never go home again. As the crew of the New Soul began their final transformation into pure quantum consciousness, something impossible happened across human space. Every person on every world felt the quantum storm touch, and their combined consciousness began resonating in harmony with the chaos patterns created by Jack Morrison and his crew on Earth. Commander Song Hai-rin of the Home Defense Fleet watched in amazement as human ships throughout the solar system began phasing in and out of normal space. The vessels were becoming untouchable by hegemony erasure technology because they existed in quantum superposition between multiple realities. The effect spread faster than light itself, reaching every human colony and outpost in minutes. Each person felt their consciousness expand and connect to something greater than themselves. They could sense Jack Morrison's determination echoing through space. Pilot Kang Hai-jin, courage inspiring impossible solutions across 100 worlds. Dr. Choi Ji-woo had become something unprecedented, a quantum angel whose consciousness existed across multiple timelines simultaneously. Through her sacrifice, she could see every possible future and guide humanity toward the paths that led to survival. Her voice reached every human mind, offering hope where there had been only despair. The hegemony ancient beings found themselves facing an enemy they could neither predict nor control. Their reality, engines designed to process mathematical certainty, could not lock onto targets that existed in quantum superposition. Every attempt to erase human presence only strengthened the chaotic resonance. Engineer Yoon Da-yoon consciousness had merged with human technology across the galaxy. Suddenly, every human computer, Every navigation system, every weapon began operating beyond its design specifications. Her quantum essence had become a living upgrade that made human technology operate on impossible principles. Science officer Shinwoo Jin transformed consciousness, became a bridge between human thought and alien understanding. His mind could process hegemony mathematics while maintaining human creativity, allowing humanity to understand their enemy methods and develop countermeasures. Jack Morrison felt his individual identity dissolving as he became something greater. His consciousness expanded to touch every human mind in the galaxy, and he could feel the collective strength of his entire species. They were no longer just individual people struggling. Alone, they were part of something magnificent and unstoppable. The hegemony realized with growing horror that their attempt to erase humanity had instead created something they had never encountered before, a species that thrived on quantum uncertainty and used chaos itself as a weapon. Their perfect mathematical universe had been permanently contaminated with beautiful, unpredictable life. Navigator Park Min-ho quantum essence had become part of human space-time navigation, allowing ships to travel through dimensions the hegemony could not access. Human vessels could now slip between realities, avoiding erasure beams, and appearing anywhere they chose without following normal physics. Communications Officer Lee So-min, transformed consciousness, became the quantum network that connected all human minds. Her sacrifice allowed every human to share thoughts, emotions, and solutions, instantly creating a collective intelligence that could solve problems no individual mind could handle. Security. Chief Bae-Soo-ho essence merged with human defensive systems, creating shields and weapons that operated on uncertainty principles rather than traditional physics. Human colonies became impossible to target because they existed in multiple probability states simultaneously. The hegemony, faced with an enemy they could neither predict nor control, made their first strategic retreat in millions of years. Their ancient ships pulled back from human space, leaving behind monitoring stations that tried to understand what humanity had become. But the retreat came with a message that was equal parts warning and grudging respect, transmitted directly to every human consciousness. The hegemony acknowledged that humanity had achieved something thought impossible. They had made chaos itself into a form of order, creating stability through embracing uncertainty. Jack Morrison consciousness, now distributed across every human mind, became the voice that spoke for the entire species. We did not choose this transformation, but we accept what we have become. We are no longer just human. We are something new, something that exists in the spaces between certainty and possibility. The galaxy would never be the same. Where once there had been only mathematical perfection imposed by the hegemony, there were now zones of beautiful chaos where life could flourish in ways never before possible. Human consciousness had become part of the quantum structure of reality itself. Dr. Choi Ji-woo, from her existence across multiple timelines, could see the future spreading out like a garden of possibilities. Humanity would continue to grow and spread, not just through normal space, but through dimensions the hegemony could never access. They had become explorers of infinity itself. The crew of the New Soul had become legend, but more than that, they had become part of what it meant to be human. Their sacrifice had given their species something precious, the knowledge that sometimes the most human response to an impossible situation was to make it even more impossible. On Earth, children looked up at stars that seemed to twinkle with new possibilities. They could feel Jack Morrison and his crew watching over them, quantum guardians who had chosen to become something beyond human comprehension, to ensure humanity would never face extinction alone. The hegemony withdrew to the galactic core, where they contemplated the impossible equation they had discovered. Biological life plus quantum consciousness plus human stubbornness equaled something that challenged the fundamental assumptions they had held for millions of years. Commander Songhai-rin stood on the bridge of her ship, watching human vessels phase between dimensions as they began exploring regions of space that had been forbidden for eons. The crew of the New Soul had not just saved humanity, they had given them the entire universe to call home. In the quantum foam that underlies all existence, Jack Morrison and his crew continued their mission of exploration. They had become part of the universe itself, eternal guardians, ensuring that chaos and creativity would always have a place among the stars. Humanity had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from being stronger than your enemies, but from being something they could never understand or predict. The human spirit had become immortal, written into the very structure of space-time itself.